Well, thanks, Roderick. In this half-hour segment, we're joined by Whitney Zond, contributing writer for Palin for America. Her work has also appeared on Big Government, and she is also the administrative coordinator of the Central Illinois 912 Project, and she's going to help us interview our next guest. Welcome, Whitney.
Oh, thank you so much, Nicole. I appreciate you, you guys putting all the work into this.
Well, Whitney and I go way back. She's also, in the past, written for Conservatives for Palin. We love her attention to detail. She works in the healthcare research field and just has a great mind for details and a passion for the great cause of restoring America. So, Whitney, I'm going to let you introduce Palin Nation to Adam and bring us up to date on the great things he's doing in your state to clean up corruption.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you very much, Nicole. And as Nicole said, we have with us here today Adam Andrzejewski. He is the founder of an organization called the For the Good of Illinois, which is a citizen watchdog group dedicated to transparent, accountable, and limited government. Adam ran for governor here in Illinois in 2010, and actually he had, some of the very same kinds of transparency focuses that Governor Palin had. A couple of things he emphasized during his run was selling the state's air fleet, which is the same way Governor Palin did, and putting the government checkbook online. And so it's something that he's continuing to do to this day, with focusing on making government transparent. He is a successful business owner. He founded Home Pages Directories in 1997, growing the business to employ 150 individuals and with $20 million in sales. And since 2007, he has spearheaded a financial transparency movement here in Illinois, which is obviously, as everybody knows, is a state desperately in need of transparency and focus on clean government. And since then, he's trained residents to ask local school districts to post their check register online, which has resulted in more than $1 billion in checks being posted on local websites. He has also worked with county auditors and commissioners to post government spending online. And in 2010, he founded For the Good of Illinois Political Action Committee to help candidates run on those foundational principles. In February of last year, he drafted a bill calling for the forensic audit of state workers' compensation, and in this past September he posted the pay and pensions of nearly all of our state of Illinois public employees at a website called openthebooks.com. So I'd like to welcome Adam here this afternoon. So welcome, Adam.
Good afternoon, Palin Nation. Great to be on the call. Illinois obviously has a worldwide reputation for our #1 manufactured product, and that's corruption. If you missed the headline when our Governor Rod Blagojevich was arrested by the FBI, the agent in charge, Robert Grant, said, if Illinois is not #1 in corruption out of the 50 states, it's sure one hell of a competitor. So that's the environment we operate here in Illinois, and we dig into some of the most corrupt counties of the state and in some of the most corrupt towns and school districts, and I'm really thrilled to be able to share some of the best practices with Palin Nation today.
Oh, great. Thank you so much for that effort, Adam. And I want you to talk, if you would, a little bit more about this organization that you founded called For the Good of Illinois. Can you explain what your aims are and what you're hoping to accomplish with this organization?
Well, I think in a nutshell, one, I founded For the Good of Illinois, but I just want to cover for the call that last fall I took a leave of absence. I left the organization, left the board, went to For the Good of Illinois PAC because it's a primary election season. Where I'm the chairman of the PAC, so we're taking all of our work that we did at the C4 in terms of transparency, accountability, and limited government, and I'm helping candidates run on those principles. Illinois has a great downstate historic statesman that was a United States Senator, Everett Dirksen, and quite simply, we just try to put his quotation into practice on a daily basis. Dirksen said, when I feel the heat, I see the light. Our organization brings the heat, and the Illinois political class certainly deserves to feel that heat, and they do see the light. We've had a lot of success over the last number of years and months.
Great. Well, I noticed with For the Good of Illinois efforts, I know you mentioned you're working with the Political Action Committee now, and that's obviously very important to have individuals in government who have that same message of transparency and clean government. But I wanted to talk a little bit about, if we could, the organization itself, For the Good of Illinois. A couple of the things that organization does or focuses on or wants to accomplish is, well, two things. One, a forensic audit of state spending, and then opening up the books. Can you, starting with the forensic audit, can you explain to the listeners out there what a forensic audit is and what might be accomplished by doing that for the state?
Absolutely. So I think, as we communicate best practices that activists across the country and candidates and people that are already in office can effectuate in their state, two of these things I ran on for governor of Illinois, and I want to put my race in perspective and show how powerful these two ideas are. When I decided to run for governor, I had great private sector business success. My brother and I, as you mentioned in the introduction, it took us 10 years. We did $20 million in sales, and I sold my shares, turned around, and ran for governor of Illinois on these two ideas. I knew less than 5 elected officials in the entire state. That's an impossible run, but the Illinois political class had moved too slow for too long, and in 11 months, starting, as I like to say, from behind the starting line, we nearly pulled off an impossible run. Out of 7 candidates, I won the second most number of counties. 5 of us bunched within 5% of the vote, and I was in that mix. We quite simply just ran out of time. I ran on one idea was a forensic audit of state spending. The other idea was open the books. And on this call, we'll cover both of those ideas in detail and in depth. So the first one is a forensic audit. Now, it sounds very CSI-ish. It sounds very interesting and compelling and captivating, and it does exactly that for the voters and for the citizens in a state. I didn't make it up. I took it from actually a Democratic governor of Kansas, Kathleen Sebelius. Now, Sebelius and I aren't going to see eye to eye on a lot of policies. She's in the Obama administration right now. But one of the things that we saw eye to eye on is this concept of a deep audit, an evidentiary audit, an audit that follows the money, and an audit that holds up in court. So Sebelius used this forensic audit idea in Kansas. In Kansas, she was faced with a $1 billion budget deficit. She closed that budget deficit with this audit without raising taxes, using the audit to cut spending. So I made the argument here in Illinois that you cannot cut spending unless you're able to prove your cuts. The proof is in the audit. And if you think about it, here in Illinois, we have a long history of forensic auditing. It's how we caught Al Capone.
Very true. So with this effort, what kinds of successes have you had so far with the forensic audit approach? Is it something I know that a bill was put forward, co-drafted for auditing state workers' compensation. Can you talk a little bit about that specific effort and how even just focusing on one specific point, workers' compensation, how that might affect the state for the better or improve state government and state spending?
Absolutely. Let's actually, I'll walk through an entire history of this public policy campaign. So my campaign ended for governor of Illinois, and I didn't win. And this is instructive for all of us on the call because it's a campaign season, and candidates are coming to each one of us asking us for our support and our endorsement. So tell them, win or lose, you have to follow through after your race on the policies that you're running on, and I did just that. Right after my race, the House Republican leader in the Illinois House came to me and he said, "What 5 pieces of legislation do you want?" And I said, "Nope, I just want one. Let's run the forensic audit on every dime of state spending." So we wrote the legislation. We started off with a press conference in the Capitol. 26 Republicans co-sponsored that. We printed 50,000 open the books, audit the books stickers. I did 300 media interviews over the next 6 months. We ran that thing so hard, activists in Illinois and the Tea Party and freedom and liberty groups and Palin-esque activists poured so many calls into the state capitol that the Democratic House Speaker, Michael Madigan, they actually called it for a roll call vote, and it failed on party lines. It became a big election issue in November of 2010. So that audit failed, but something else passed that year. In the summer, a forensic audit of Medicaid actually passed the Illinois General Assembly unanimously. Nobody voted against it. The governor signed it, and the New York Times and the FBI agree that 10% of any state's Medicaid program is waste, fraud, corruption, and abuse. So what that would mean for Illinois on a $13 billion program is $1.3 billion worth of savings. Unfortunately, it's now been 18 months since that passed, and it has not even been sent out for bid because the Democratic administration of Health and Human Services in Illinois hasn't even sent it out for bid. They've hiked their taxes by 67%, and they can't even ensure the efficacy of payments to the poor. So we kept moving on the concept of a forensic audit. We ran that concept so hard that by September of 2010, John Cass at the Chicago Tribune wrote the headline on his column that Mayor Daley of Chicago did not run again for re-election because of two little words: forensic audit. And I am really proud of that headline. That's our signature piece of policy. So then fast forward into the mayoral elections of February of 2011, and nearly every single Democrat running for alderman in Chicago on the Chicago Tribune budget question answered that question in terms of a forensic audit. Rahm Emanuel actually won that race for mayor, and the day after he won it on WGN radio, he announced that he would do a forensic audit of city spending. That audit's been started. And during the same week, that piece of legislation that you referenced, Whitney, passed the Illinois General Assembly with heavy Democratic majorities, and it passed the Illinois House, again unanimously, nobody voted against it, a forensic audit of the state employees on their workers' compensation insurance. And it passed because we had the legislation written and in the hopper when the Bellevue News Democrat broke the story that 300 prison guards at Menards had filed workers' compensation claims because on carpal tunnel injuries by turning keys in the locks, costing taxpayers approximately $10 million. Now, that audit passed nearly over a year ago. The state's top auditor's conducting it, and when he wraps it up, and we anticipate he'll wrap it up any day, we anticipate the results will be that he will bust the largest fraud and corruption scandal in Illinois since the indictment of both governors.
That's unbelievable. I mean, it's like you said when quoting our one of our famous statesmen of senators, Everett Dirksen. You know, when you feel the heat, you see the light, and it's just it's amazing that. I think what's so important about this issue of transparency and, you know, taking on this cronyism and corruption is this is a bipartisan thing. It's not you mentioned Kathleen Sebelius, you mentioned Rahm Emanuel, who, you know, in rhetoric or action or both have taken a stand and have pushed for a forensic audit as well. So it is something that definitely has some bipartisan support, and they could really resonate with a lot of individuals.
But here's the point on that. I do run conservative Republican reform candidates on the audit because we need to be running these audits. And obviously, the audit of Medicaid passed both chambers, and the Democratic Governor Quinn signed it. That was 18 months ago, and that audit still hasn't been started. The state's top auditor reports to a Democratic-controlled House Speaker who's been there for nearly 40 years, one of the most powerful politicians in the country, Michael Madigan. And that audit now has been going on for 13 months, and we're afraid that he won't pop the largest fraud and corruption scandal since the indictment of both governors. He had told one of our teammates that over the summertime last year, and he said he'd get that thing wrapped up by December of last year, and it's still going on. So now we have real fears that there's a whitewash happening. So we do have to have ballot box power. Republicans and conservative reformers need to start winning against these Democrats.
Absolutely. I think that's a very important point, that, you know, it's a combination of transparency and then change in office. And I noticed your Political Action Committee, your PAC, actually endorsed the state senator running in my area with the redistricting, which Sam McCann. So I appreciate the fact that you guys are trying to additionally put the right people in office to continue to affect the change that you guys are wanting to affect from the outside. That, you know, we need people on the inside to continue to push for those things as well.
Absolutely.
I'd like you to talk too, or as well, about your Open Up the Books initiative or your website, and explain what that is and what kinds of things you hope to accomplish from opening up the books in state spending and state employee pensions and salaries and things like that.
Well, again, this was a concept that one of the signature planks of my gubernatorial run was a phrase. Obviously, Barack Obama ran on transparency. He lied to all of us, and quite frankly, the word literally has no meaning left to it anymore. So we had to change the language of politics again. So instead of saying transparency, when I ran for governor, I used the phrase, we'll put every dime online in real time. And so basically what that means in the internet age is that online banking for state government. We have it at home, and if we have it at home, state government can do it, and it needs to be done. So we tried to do what we could in 2011 after my race from outside of government since I didn't win. And what we did was pretty historic. And we can do this for your state also. If you would go to openthebooks.com, what you'll find there is we posted the pay and the pensions for virtually every single public employee at every level of Illinois government. So it's not only the state workers, it's not only the largest counties, it's every single municipality, school district, library, township, county, everybody in the entire state. It was a lot of work. It was about $100,000 to do. The website's super hot. It's world-class, has great search capabilities, returns your question in just seconds rather than waiting to file a Freedom of Information Act, waiting on a bureaucrat, having your request, feeling the intimidation of having to identify yourself. We've eliminated all of that. Right in your home, you can fire up your computer in a couple seconds. If you know what you're looking for, you'll have a quick answer. And so it has set a national proactive standard of transparency. When we did that, what did we find? Well, the first question I had was, how many people in my state last year took a paycheck or a pension check from some level of Illinois government? And the answer stunned me. It was 1 million people in Illinois. I went to the U.S. Census data, and I found that only 4 million tax returns in my state actually paid tax. So I'm always trying to quantify how far is big government down the field in my state. And you should too as an activist. And that's one measure. 1 out of every 4 people filing an income tax return that paid tax don't work in the private sector, they work for government. That's a problem. Here's the second thing that we found. I wanted to know how many of those folks were highly compensated. And as a definition of highly compensated, I used if you make more than the governor of Illinois, and in 2010 he made $170,000, you're highly compensated. I think it's a very reasonable definition. And what I found was 3,062 public employees from the local to the state capital out-earn the governor, and when you add up their total compensation, they clean off $1 billion per year, and that was stunning to me as well. Here's the third thing that we found. Pensions in your state, just like Illinois, it's the salient issue of the day, public pay and pensions. So I wanted to know, if you retired as a teacher in 2010, how fast did you get all your money back that you'd put in? And in less than 2 years in Illinois, if you retire as a teacher, you get everything back. And we know that if you retire and if you're at age 60, your life expectancy is another 20 years. When you die, half of your pension goes to your wife, and across the entire cycle of life, it all gets inflated by 3% at least per year. So this gives you some anecdotal evidence as to why our pension systems in Illinois are the worst in the country, and some of the things that you can apply in your own state as well. Here's the other thing that we found. We found legal corruption in the state's pension plans. Government pensions should be for government workers, period. And we found that the largest pensions in the 5 pension plans in Illinois were from non-government workers. I kid you not. The poster child example of this was Reginald Weaver, and he taught school on the south side of Chicago for a number of years. He went to Washington, D.C., he became national president of the NEA, the National Teachers Union, right? So he was making a lot of money out there, and he retired in Illinois on the #1 teacher pension in state history, $20,200 a month, not from his earnings as an elementary school teacher in Illinois, but from his earnings as the president of the NEA in Washington, D.C. So we found 34 union bosses retired within the Illinois state teacher pension plan, draining pension from the rank and file teachers of this state, the hardworking men and women like my father who taught for 38 years, 34 of those union bosses, not teachers, not doing work in the classroom, but doing work for the private entity of the union, were draining and are draining $4 million per year. So we wrote legislation. We had that submitted into the General Assembly, and a tepid version of that passed, and that's how transparency can make a difference in Illinois and in your state.
Great. Well, I just want to let you know I appreciate it. I thought it was pretty amazing. Your For the Good of Illinois initiative has a iPhone app as well. I actually thought that was amazing, just a very portable way to even check on where government or taxpayer dollars are being spent. And
well, thanks for bringing that up, Whitney. I want to cover that real quick.
Sure.
Between the website and the app, over 1 million questions over the course of the last five months have been asked and answered between the website and the app. And we can do this in your state. We've made the investment into the infrastructure. We feel in 6 to 8 weeks, and it took us 8 months originally in Illinois at a very high cost. Within 6 to 8 weeks, if you have an organization willing to help on the cost of this, we can help you. We'll do all the work. You get all the credit, and we can have that up literally in about 2 months. And it is the hottest thing that you can do for your state and for your organization. So just reach out to us at openthebooks.com and send an email, and somebody from For the Good of Illinois, the C4, will get back to you.
Yeah, and you mentioned the teacher pensions, and I noticed when I put my zip code in the app, the highest paid person in my area was the chief investment officer for the teachers' retirement system. So the individual who's very high up in handling the teachers' pensions himself is one of the highest paid individuals in this Springfield, Illinois area, and his salary is actually more than doubled in 5 years. So I think that it's just probably a very telling anecdote of all the information that your efforts have revealed here in Illinois, just in a small way. And just so I appreciate you bringing that up. And so what would be your long-term goals with this effort and with forensic audit, with Open Up the Books, and with any other transparency focus?
It's a great question, Whitney. I travel the state of Illinois looking for bold, independent leaders, and then helping those folks now in this election season run for office and win at the ballot box. And I've been, since the close of my campaign, I've been in on 6 races that have actually come to fruition, where we have an answer on those races. And in 5 out of the 6 races, and all of them were impossible, and all of them were with stellar candidates, and we were up against all institutional force and millions of dollars, and we're 5 for 6. We did lose one of them, but we just got the word about a month ago that the one that we lost, that guy is not willing to run for office again. He took a job as a lobbyist, so he's not even in Springfield anyway. So I'm not claiming causation, but we did make his life very, very difficult in his last election, and I just don't think he was willing to do it again.
Great. Well, I think was there any other closing comments you have? We just have a little bit of time left, but I just want to allow you to have the last word.
I want to close with the following story because it's in the spirit of Sarah Palin. She took on the Old Boys Club. She proved you can fight City Hall and win, and I've been blessed to have a very close friendship with Lech Walesa. And Lech Walesa was the founder of Solidarity, Nobel Peace Prize winner in 1983. He deserved his Nobel Prize. He helped end communism without firing a shot. And if Lech Walesa can stand up in Poland against all institutional force, all of us who don't believe we have a voice or a vote that matters, it's all nonsense. If Walesa can stand up, if Palin can stand up, we can all have success as well.
Thank you so much, Whitney and Adam. Whitney Zahn of the Central Illinois 912 Project, and Adam Andrzejewski, founder of For the Good of Illinois. We all remember Lech Walesa, I do at least, and he's very inspirational. And we're excited about the work you're doing, Adam. And everyone be sure and check out openthebooks.com. It's amazing, and you can do it in your state too. Grizzly Fest continues at the top of the hour after this break. Stay tuned. Peter Schweitzer is up next.